Howdy y'all, Kaloth here. If I seem a little bleary-eyed, it's because I was up until about 1 a.m. last night working on the community puzzle. It was the first community puzzle since Dr. Aphra back in 2022 saw the, we'll call it the triumphant return of SB Crumb, who is the one who's always enjoyed putting these puzzles together for us, and this one did not disappoint. I may, just for posterity's purposes, do another video at some point kind of detailing logically each step of the puzzle and going through it and explaining it, just in case anybody wants to look back on it and say, you know, hey, how did this puzzle play out? But in essence, we started with several ciphers that led to one imager link, and then a bit.ly link, and then another imager link, and those had codes in them. And after going through about 5 different steps of increasing difficulty and decoding the messages that were there, it brought us to this. This reveal was the first thing that we had that night. And that is that an upcoming marquee, I would assume the next upcoming marquee, is Night Trooper. Night Trooper is from Ahsoka Season 1. He is an Imperial Remnant Stormtrooper that is enhanced and at some point, sorry if this is spoilers, resurrected with Night Sister magic during the events of Ahsoka Season 1. So we knew that Ahsoka content was most likely. I've said a couple of times recently that I really think that a Thrawn GL is coming. And I saw this, and yes, Thrawn GL confirmed. This seems like this would absolutely be a requirement for Thrawn. We had a light side Galactic Legend previously. We're going to a dark side Galactic Legend, right? Well, maybe not so much. So, looking in the image of the Night Trooper, people found that if you zoom in really, really close, there are, at places in the image, a series of dots and dashes, which took everyone to a Twitch channel that had no followers, had recently been created. The Twitch channel was not live, but was running a text-based adventure game via a bot in the chat. And the bot said, the link that took us to the Twitch chat said, don't win, find 3 ADVENT, which we thought was the word Advent. I now think, you know, is adventure game. But find 3 Advent white clues. People saw the word white and started thinking, well, maybe Ahsoka the White. Maybe the Ahsoka the White will be a marquee requirement for Thrawn, you know, if this is going for Thrawn, or maybe this is going to an Ahsoka. And as we went through this adventure game, which was really neat because it required one person couldn't just control it. The game required consensus from the chat, so everybody in the chat had to be given it the same commands. It's one of those text-based adventure games where it's like, it'll describe you're in a dark room and you see a key on the ground, and if everybody in the chat, or if enough people in the chat say take key, the game will say you take the key, you now have a key in your inventory, and so on. So that kind of sounds like a nightmare, coordinating people in a Twitch chat to kind of achieve one goal collectively. But the Galaxy of Heroes community is not to be undone here, and everybody was very coordinated, and it helped that some folks found a walkthrough for this game online, but we were eventually able to, after a couple hours of popping in those commands, we were able to get to the next reveal, which was this. It was an imager page with this in Arabesh. If you're familiar with Arabesh, it is the, you know, made-up language for Star Wars. It's not really a language. It's just a different font for English characters, right? It's English. It's just, instead of A, it's going to be that weird-looking K symbol, right? And so, you know, if you just count the letters here, clearly that's going to say Galactic Legend, Ahsoka Tano. So the jig was up at that point. We did so good on the game that we got a bonus info. Bonus info is that Ahsoka Tano Relic 9 is a requirement. And people translated it. And yes, Galactic Legend Ahsoka Tano is coming to the holotable. So, that confirms it without a shadow of a doubt. We know what's coming next. What's coming next is a Galactic Legend. It is our first non-movie GL. And it's going to be Ahsoka, based on Ahsoka Season 1. So, like I said, I'll do another video at some point just for posterity's sake, going through the steps in the puzzle. But what I want to talk about is what I'm keeping my eye on as far as preparing for Ahsoka, and also just in general, like, how do you prepare for this? What time frame are we expecting Ahsoka, and what should we be working on right now? So I'll tell you my approach, right? So coming in here to the game, first off, I'm trying to speculate, okay, well, what requirements are possible to be needed for Ahsoka? First off, my assumption is, just like Leia, we'll get 4 marquees. Now, right now, we only have 3 marquees data mined. That was also true of Leia. Leia's 4 marquees did not come in the same data mine. They came, over the course of a couple of data mines. So, I don't think the fact that we only have 3 precludes a 4th. But these are placeholder images, obviously. The first one, Night Sister Zombie here, is a placeholder for Night Trooper. They didn't explicitly say Night Trooper is a requirement for GL Ahsoka. He clearly will be. There's anything is possible, but easiest explanation is he will be a requirement. Just like back when Captain Rex was announced, everybody was like, well, is he going to be a requirement for Leia? They weren't really connected. And easiest explanation was he was, and he was. So, Night Trooper. We have that confirmed. I've got Talia here as a stand-in for Morgan Elsbeth. I think that from the minute we had Imperial Remnant plus Night Sister freebies in the store, Morgan Elsbeth was a near given. I say near given because, again, anything's possible, but I strongly expect we'll be seeing Morgan Elsbeth as probably a marquee for Ahsoka. And then I've got Sabine Wren and Ezra Bridger, obviously representing their older selves from Ahsoka Season 1. I think Sabine is a guarantee. The story of Ahsoka Season 1 was so much about the master and apprentice relationship, both between Ahsoka and Anakin, and then between Ahsoka and Sabine. And I just don't see them doing a GL Ahsoka without Sabine. I think she's a guarantee. And then Ezra seems like he would fit because I think whether or not Ahsoka ends up being an unaligned Force user or a Jedi, and I think in the lore there are arguments either way. I expect probably unaligned Force user, but who knows, right? But I think either way, it's hard to see Ezra not being on that team with her. Live action Ahsoka with live action Sabine and Ezra just seem to go together based on the events of the show. So that's my idea for the marquees. It's what I'm expecting. Obviously, there's a lot of other options out there, right? There are there's Marok, the kind of silent antagonist Inquisitor from the show. There's Balon and Shin. Balon in particular was a fan favorite character. I fully expect him to come. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see him come in the next Conquest as kind of a non-requirement, kind of his own standalone thing, but as a content tie-in, right? There's also Thrawn, right? There's no guarantee that Thrawn will be a GL. I think it would be below what we would expect Thrawn to be, but theoretically Thrawn could show up. But and there's Huyang, right? Huyang is the Jedi droid that was basically Ahsoka's sidekick through the entire show. Apologies, Huyang fans, if it's offensive me calling him a sidekick, but there are a lot of options here. But those are the 4 I think that are most likely, right? So what do we think we might see as far as existing units that might be required? Well, there's the Master and Apprentice theme in the show, right? Between Sabine, Ahsoka, and Anakin, and I think you'll see that through line in some of the requirements. So Phoenix, Sabine, any version of Ahsoka really, Commander Ahsoka and Fulcrum are both still on the table, and we know for a fact that Padawan Ahsoka, Snips, is going to be required at Relic 9. So we know for a fact that she's a requirement. But the other two versions of Ahsoka are fair game here. And then I expect some form of Anakin, right? Either Jedi Knight Anakin or Darth Vader, both of which are already at high relics. So that would be one that you would expect to be a God, I hope we would only get 2 Relic 9s here, but it's possible. And also, worth pointing out here, if Commander Ahsoka Tano is required, and there's at least one more example of another unit like this in this possible list, that would be the first time a Conquest unit would be required for a GL. Keep in mind, Leviathan required the Fury Interceptor, which itself required Darth Malgus. So technically, we've already had Conquest units as a requirement for ships, right? For Leviathan and for Executor before it with Razor Crest. But we've never had a Conquest requirement for Galactic Legend. I think this is our best chance so far, right? Commander Ahsoka, and like I said, there's one other we'll talk about. Then you look at her other allies during the Clone Wars era. You've got Plo Koon, who was recently in a Lightspeed bundle. I don't know if that is going to impact anything, but I do think that Plo Koon is an option, right? He was one of her allies. By the way, speaking of Lightspeed bundles, let me talk. Well, we'll get to Phoenix in a minute, but I'm curious how Lightspeed bundles are going to impact how CG develops Galactic Legend requirements, because there's a lot of overlap with Lightspeed bundles here, with potential Night Sisters that could tie in. Probably not so much with Ahsoka. But with Phoenix, with some Galactic Republic like Plo Koon. So, how's that going to tie in here? I don't know. Also, Barriss Offee. Barriss has not been a requirement for anything. You'll notice my Barriss here is still at low gear just because I haven't had the bandwidth to gear her up, even though she is so good. This Barriss and Ahsoka were close as Padawans. This is it's very easy to justify Barriss being a requirement here. Of all of these, I think Barriss is one of the sure hits. Coruscant Underworld Police would be it'd be kind of like requiring God, I don't even remember its name. The Underworld Mafia scoundrel for Jabba the Hutt. I'm blanking on the name right now, but they required that for Jabba. They could require Coruscant Underworld Police for Ahsoka. They had several run-ins in the Clone Wars. And then, of course, some version of reqs feels like it would be almost required. Obviously, we already have reqs at Relic 7 for Leia. And then, of course, there's Clone Trooper reqs that I believe is a requirement for Lord Vader, who I don't have on this account. So I think that a version of reqs is possible. And then we've already got Sabine up here, but the rest of the Phoenix crew, right? Ahsoka herself, even though Ahsoka in the game does not have the does not have the Phoenix tag, right? Fulcrum just has unaligned Force user. In the show, Ahsoka was Phoenix before Hera and the Spectre crew were, right? Ahsoka is the one who brought them into that fold. So any of them makes sense, right? Just from her appearances in Ahsoka's, in Rebels. Moving on, going to Ahsoka's first live action appearance, and then some of her later Clone Wars appearances as well. She's got a lot of connections with Mandalorians, right? She's worked with Din Djarin, the Mandalorian. She has worked with Grogu. And in the Clone Wars, she's worked with Bo-Katan. So, both Beskar Mando and IG-12 and Grogu are required for Bo-Katan Mandalore, which, as you can see, I haven't even touched on this account. And then, of course, there's also the Bo-Katan Kryze, who is required at R5 for Jedi Master Kenobi. So any of these could come up. And I've got Beskar Mando on here. It could very easily be Bounty Hunter Mando, which, going back to Lightspeed bundles, we've already had a Lightspeed bundle for him as well. And then I have listed here her nemesis. Grand Admiral Thrawn is obviously one that comes to mind, right? He's kind of her main nemesis in Ahsoka Season 1. Hondo is a fun one, and as you can see, I don't have Afra on this account, so this is another one that I'm going to be sharding him up. He's accelerated. It shouldn't take too long. I think he's a Cantina farm. Hondo is possible, right? People have him at R5 for Afra anyway, but it's easy to see CG being like, we'll have an R6 or R7 Hondo, right? Hondo and Ahsoka clash a couple of times during the Clone Wars. I've got Seventh Sister here listed. Fifth Brother also fits, right? She clashes with the Inquisitors in Rebels. I don't know that those are likely, but they're possible, right? And then Maul and Gar Saxon. Maul is the other conquest unit that I mentioned. Ahsoka and Maul were, they were the principal antagonist-protagonist pair of the Clone Wars Season 7, right? Their clashes there were a big part of Clone Wars Season 7. They were a big part of Ahsoka's arc in Rebels. So Maul makes sense here. Could be Darth Maul, or it could be Unaligned Force User Maul, which again would be another conquest character that could be a potential requirement for the Galactic Legend. And then Gar Saxon, right? She had these clashes with Maul and his Mandalorians. Gar Saxon was one of Maul's Mandalorians. So that is what I'm looking for as far as requirements. I'll be bringing all these characters at least up to Gear 12 even before we get any announcement on anything, just so I can have that kind of comfortably ready. But as we can see, I feel like I have probably a pretty average Kyber 2 account here, where I've got most journeys except some of the newer ones. I've got most GLs except, Lord Vader I don't have on that account. I've got him on the other one. But on this account, if you take me as kind of a garden variety Kyber 2 player, most of the potential requirements I already have at Relic. So I am curious how CG is going to handle that. We might have some really bad ones thrown in there, like Coruscant Underworld Police, just to kind of suck up some useless relics. We may have some higher relic requirements. But something we were considering for Leia when we were speculating about her requirements last year, the thought with Leia is that they were going to twist the screws for the same reason. And they didn't, right? Leia required pretty easy requirements for people who were established into the game on top of requiring new marquees at Relic 7. So that's kind of what I expect here. I expect a big cost with Ahsoka being a couple of R9s, and then 3 or 4 new marquees all at Relic 7. So that's what I'm expecting. How I am planning on taking this is, like I said, I'm going to be taking those characters like Barriss and Coruscant Underworld Police. I'm just going to take them up to Gear 12 just to be ready. And then once I'm done with my Naboo raid teams, once I've got those teams in place, and I'm missing a couple of key characters there, so that's my primary focus right now. I'm going to be taking Snips to R9. Snips being Ahsoka Tano, the character, the Padawan Jedi Ahsoka in Galaxy Heroes. I'm going to take her to Relic 9. Probably before any of GL Ahsoka's requirements are announced, just so I have that out of the way. I know there's no doubt that I'm going to be going for this character. There's not going to be anything that's going to stop me from going for this character, so I'm definitely doing it, so might as well get that out of the way. So that's my plan. Get my raid units done, take Ahsoka Snips to R9, and then kind of pre-prep any of the logical requirements from there, and then just wait and see. Obviously I listed more characters here than are going to be included as requirements, right? This is almost twice what a normal Galactic Legend requirement would be if you included all of these. So who knows? We'll see. So anyway, sorry again if I'm rambling. It was a very late night. The puzzle was incredibly fun. If you participated, what did you enjoy about it? Like I said, I'm going to do another video at some point kind of walking through the puzzle just for posterity's sake. And as we get more info about the upcoming content cycle with Galactic Legend Ahsoka, I'll be talking about that more and bringing that news here. So thanks for watching. I hope everyone is well. May the Force be with you.